The question is, Namaste Sri Acharyaji, why does the universe itself exist? Why was it created? Thank you, and please continue doing these sessions. A lot of people would be lost without guidance, and we appreciate it. First of all, thank you very much for that last comment especially. This is why we do this. This is why we do this. This is very different. What we do is different from other YouTube channels or anything. We, trust me, do not do this to make a buck. We do this for only one reason, and that is to help people. And on every level, from very, very lofty levels to help them philosophically and to follow the path wonderfully, but also very practical levels as well. Challenges that people are having in this insane world that we're living in today. So thank you for that wonderful comment. But let me address your question now. The reason why the universe exists and why it was created in the first place, I believe that's what you say here. First of all, we need to understand the Vedic view of cosmogony and cosmology. And that is that cosmogony, the difference between the two, cosmogony means basically how the world was created, also why it was created, but also cosmology, that is, having been created, how the universe is presently structured. That's what those two terms mean. So with that understanding, we need to understand that unlike the Abrahamic religions for which the universe is created ex nihilo, that's the Latin, meaning from nothingness. That's literally the understanding of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that there was nothing and then suddenly there was something. Every other single tradition upon the face of the earth, i.e. all the Dharmic traditions, whether Sanatana Dharma or Buddhism or paganism, etc., believes that materiality itself was pre-existent to materiality and formed. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. And I'll try to explain this in a somewhat simple way. I can't guarantee that I can, but I'll try to explain it in layman terms. There is the material world as it is presently structured, what we would call creation, that is the world and formed as we understand it. That is, everything has nama and rupa, name and form. But then there are the very building blocks of that itself. Now, as the world is presently enformed, not informed, but enformed with an E, it is the case that is something that is limited. Our specific universe came into being at a specific time, and Vedic cosmogony agrees with, even interestingly, modern science in this one aspect, if only maybe this one aspect, in that the universe is billions of years old. Oh, it's not 6,000 years old. That is silly to the point of one's brain literally dropping out of one's head. The universe is not 6,000 years old. No, it's been here for billions of years. But previous to our specific universe being here, materiality itself is something that is pre-existent, number one. Number two, it is eternal, that is material energy, prakriti, is something that is eternal, and in the true sense of that term, it always has existed, it always will exist. And its nature is that it is one of the Shaktis, one of the powers of Sriman Narayana, of God. It's one of the lower energies, interestingly, one of the least important, but it is nonetheless a very important energy. So with that understanding, that is in a summation the idea of cosmogony, that the universe comes into being, it's sustained for some time, and then it goes out of being. And this happens in a cyclical sort of way. Now, as far as the meaning of all this, which is really the important question of what you're asking here, the meaning of it is that, like everything, the material universe, with everything that I've said, individual universes that come into being, and we believe in multiple universes. There are an almost infinite number of parallel universes, and they're not exactly like this. They're all different. There's not another Acharyaji in a different universe. I'm here alone. They're all different, but there are many universes. The idea is that all of this serves a function. What is that function? That function is to serve Atman. Now, I'm using Atman in the philosophical sense. Really, what we mean are the individual Atmans, plural. As an Atman finds itself in its original state, that is in a different energy of God, Tatashta Shakti, that neutral energy, we find ourselves in a transcendent realm and eventually coming to the point of individuation, where now we have the ability to do several things, including to exercise our will, to recognize self, to recognize that which is other, to have desires, etc., etc. At this point, when the Atman experiences this sense of individuation, it now has a choice that is presented, a very general choice. That is, it can now continue to explore itself, but now in relation not only to itself, not only to other, but to the supreme other, to God. And that being the case, if it makes that choice, which 3/4 of the Atmans do, they continue to grow spiritually. They never touch materiality. But then 1/4 of Atmans make a mistake. And that is that using that powerful Atmic instrument of free will, they choose illusion. They choose that rather than trying to explore their true self, they have this realization, oh, why can't I create a self? You see, that is ahankara. Ahankara means literally I maker. Aham and kara from to do, to make, to create. That is false ego. So some Atmans choose false ego. Not a second later, but instantaneously, with choosing false ego, they now find themselves within the material realm. Now, it's not a punishment, as some people would think. It's not a punishment. On the contrary, it's that, if anything, reality, both spiritual and material taken together, all of reality is in actuality perfect. This being the case, now that these Atmans have chosen a path that is contrary to what they are naturally, inherently meant to do, what is done with them? You see, if a human being, you see, this is why, oh my Lord, human beings who fantasize about being God, that would be the destruction of all reality and the torture of every human being. If a human were to say, oh, what would I do if I were God? They probably would take those Atmans that made the wrong choice and just eliminate them. Literally just kind of destroy them. But God does not. No. Once an Atman is an Atman, which means always, they always are Atman. They always were Atman, they always shall be Atman. But now, having chosen illusion, a constructed and artificial self versus true self, there is this plane of existence, Prakriti Shakti, such that they can now safely, interestingly, explore that fake self. And this explains everything. This explains the multiplicity and the diversity that we find around us. Again, not to get too philosophical, but this is one of the biggest philosophical debates going back to the beginning of philosophy. That is unity versus multiplicity. How do you explain the two? Well, this explains that in the material world we have all this multiplicity. And why? Well, because Atmans individually chose multiplicity in their illusion. So what does that mean? They all chose their own path. So thus, when we look at Atmans in the material world, what do we see? What do we really see? And when I say Atmans, not just the Manushas, in fact, not just even the humans, or the biological humans, every living being. What do we see? We see that every individual being is on their own path of their choosing, that they have formed over many lifetimes in their illusion. And some are slowly inching upward, some are slowly inching downward, some plummet downward, some are just kind of hovering in the middle, and on and on and on. Well, this is the perfect nature of reality itself, but also of this material world, that it provides the material and the principles through Dharma by which an Atman, even in illusion, can safely explore that illusion in such a way that, they are fulfilling their ill desire, but in such a way that in time, and that will vary from person to person, maybe after 3 lifetimes, maybe after 1,000,000 lifetimes, hopefully they will eventually tire of this, even if subconsciously, and realize, I am meant to transcend this entirely and to follow my true path that my Atman itself yearns for, and that is to know God. So that is why the material world exists. That is its meaning. We are here temporarily. Oh, you don't believe we're here temporarily? Well, speak to me in 300 years. We're here temporarily. We live as if we're not. We live as if, oh yes, I'm going to be in this form and same mindset, same everything for all of eternity. That's how we live. See, that's the illusion. We are in the illusion. We are in the illusion. The goal is to get out of this illusion and to embrace reality for what it truly is. To embrace truth. And what is that truth? God is truth. God is truth. God is truth. So I hope that answers the question for you.